This is the Left in the Forgotten Borough podcast. I am Andrew Savage, and Nancy Richards is off on a European adventure until late next week. But right now, we have a really special guest co-host, my friend and Staten Island Action Coalition founding member, Laura McCarthy. Welcome to the Left in the Forgotten Borough podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So I wanted to have you on as the guest co-host because you were a principal organizer of this past Saturday's No Kings rally, and so here on Staten Island, and a lot of people that I know that I told that I was doing a No Kings rally on Staten Island expressed some skepticism about that. Like, well, how many people are going to show up? It's Staten Island.
Right,
It's MAGA
right.
country. What's going to happen there? And so, talk a little bit about the planning of it and also how you think things went.
Sure. Well, the Staten Island Action Coalition is a part of a greater coalition that I would like to explain that a little bit because I'm not sure that everyone understands it. It is called Staten Island for the People. And this past year, what was discovered is that there are a lot of very like-minded organizations out there that have similar but distinctly different missions and but all kind of within the same framework of what our concerns and are and actions that we're taking in many, many different ways, like not necessarily exactly like us. And we came together as a group. It was actually organized by Sally Jones of the Peace Action of Staten Island, and they've been around for very, many, many years. They're
Sally's been on the podcast. Yeah, we know
yeah,
Sally. She's a
yeah,
friend of ours.
exactly.
Yep.
So, we came together, 7 or 8 different organizations to say, like, what can we do together? Like, let's start collaborating together and become a bigger voice and help each other out. And so that's how Maliotakis Monday was born, that we came together, and that's one of the primary things that we do. The second, so we meet on a monthly basis and we organize and strategize and we help each other out. We're all there for every event that we're having. So we decided that we would take on No Kings. It had been done 2 times before by Mike DeSillis and was very successful. And he's running. And we thought, well, this is the perfect time. I mean, Staten Island Action Coalition is a chapter of Indivisible, which is a national organization. And we are very not only tuned into the national movement of Indivisible, but we also have a very large New York City Indivisible group that we routinely meet and we organize and do a lot of actions throughout the city with them. So we thought, well, we're in the best position here because we're indivisible. And so we took it on, the Staten Island for the People took it on as an event. And we really thought this, we're going to ride on the coattails of the first two, which had at least doubled each time they had it. And we thought, well, right now, almost a year and a half in, we have issues that we couldn't even imagine a
Oh
year
yeah.
ago, right?
All I heard
Uh,
about after the election was the price of eggs, and I mean, the price of everything is
yeah,
is even more astronomical.
yeah,
We were just saying before I came on, I spent $70 on gas a few days ago. I posted a picture. It was absolutely outrageous.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And but it's not only cost. I mean, I think that it's fair to say that even, Trump supporters on Staten Island are becoming really concerned about democracy. Like what is going on in the world? There's, we just see that constitutional rights are being taken away, that there's a threat of that we have a president that's a warmonger who is now deciding like which country he wants to tick off and own for the next. He has like a plan. And we thought there so much more has happened even since October. Let's get on board with this. We expected that not only would, the same people come out, like-minded people, but there may very well be a lot of people who are feeling really frightened about Trump. And we were speaking to like the entire population. And lo and behold, I know that there are different quotes on how many people came out, but and certainly at least the advance had indicated 1,000, and I think that they typically underestimate. It may have been more. Um,
Well,
but
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, I stood on that truck as King George, and Nancy was next to me as Trump, and we were in that little skit. And I would say, just having stared out on that whole park area that we were in, I would say at least 15 or 1600.
you had a better view. So I'm
Yeah,
glad to hear that, Andrew. I
yeah.
really am. Yeah,
And I think people miss the forest for the trees when they talk about the numbers because not just Staten Island but red places around the country came out for No Kings
right.
and which is really an expression of how bad things are and how far we've fallen as a country, just as far as our democracy and constitutional rights. Our economic standing is far worse. And just the naked corruption and authoritarianism that this administration engages in on a pretty much daily basis is, I think, enough to get people to say enough.
Enough. Absolutely. And we wanted to put forth a vibe that was very positive. We
Yeah.
wanted to create like a really inviting place where people can come. We can have our differences, but this is everyone invited and very strength driven. Like let's take our power back. We know who we are, we the people. And we know in our past, over the last 10 years at least, that when we begin to use our voice and we push back, those politicians listen. It's the public opinion that really drives a lot. And we are trying to promote that idea that, you have power. Don't sit back and gripe. I mean, we all do that anyway, but do
Yeah.
more than that. Like get out and start taking action and begin to own your own strength because it's invigorating. And so like we had musicians and we had singers and we had like a very kind of folksy
It was very
vibe.
chill. Yeah, it was very,
Yeah,
very chill. I walked around, I saw people with their acoustic guitars
right.
and although I didn't this seemed to be a moment in time, but at the October No Kings, you saw the characters, the blow up characters, like with the frogs and the unicorns and all that kind of thing. I did see one or two of them, but it wasn't as prevalent as the October version. I think that was kind of a moment in time that's passed. But I
That
think,
is true. One of
yeah.
our characters actually had to fly it to California, to Florida for an emergency. So we lost a character there. We did have a unicorn.
Yeah, we did. I took a picture with the unicorn and they were blowing bubbles.
Right,
They were blowing bubbles. So,
right.
and I think that serves a couple of purposes. I think, it shows kind of a chill vibe to it. But then, when the president and others say that we're Antifa and that we're doing whatever and we're causing violence, you're like, really? The blow up unicorn is, causing violence by blows
And
bubbles?
3,300 protests throughout the country and also in Europe really didn't result in any disturbances at all. So, are we the crazy Antifa? If Antifa means anti-fascist, sign me up, right?
Yeah.
But I loved our program because our program really spoke to voila, King George, and you were King George, and Nancy was Trump, which I thought was fantastic.
Oh, Nancy was the
And it was
star of the show. She got the mannerisms and the dances.
the YMCA
Yeah,
dance.
she's nailed it. She nailed it. I mean, I knew when we were approached about doing this, I was like, well, Nancy and I were teachers at the same school for many years, and so I remember one Halloween she dressed up like Trump and she had it all down. I was like, definitely, that's her role. I'll be the king.
It was perfect. But the whole idea of bringing in King George and listing from the Declaration of Independence all of the grievances that we had against King George at that time, and then reading off the grievances of Donald Trump and seeing that they were identical. That was the purpose of it. It was the irony of here we are in our 250th year as a nation that we're celebrating this year, and we have the same exact grievances from a wannabe authoritarian king who is pretty much just ignoring the Constitution, picking at only what he wants, wanting to change the very foundations of our, federal agencies, taking things to court, trying to rule the country by his own, this is what I want. tariffs and changing tariffs based upon personal favors, in-depth, transparent corruption like we have never seen before. Like subtlety is gone. And here we are. This
Yeah.
man is acting like a king. And it's sobering, but at the same time, you and Nancy really pulled it off to try to balance the lightness of it
Oh,
as
yeah.
well.
Oh, yeah. Well, it is authoritarian. It is a threat to our democracy, but these people are just such fucking dweebs. They are so dumb. They are so, I mean, we'll get to it a little later, but Kristi Noem with her husband with the big tits out there and everything, it's just insane. But I was just I mean, it's like Hitler but dumber. Like, like
Oh,
dumber.
I mean, is it inappropriate to say dumber than dirt? And honestly, I mean, when you have a mentally ill, deranged, very sadistically driven man who has always organized his whole life around bolstering himself and protecting that fragile narcissistic ego of his, when you have somebody like that making decisions that are affecting your life and your safety, it's terrifying. So we laugh at, well, we don't even know whether or not to cry or to laugh, right?
Yeah. Well, it's just, yeah, I mean, I think just to build on the point about his ego, Mary Trump had the best phrase for it. It was the title of her first book. It was too much and never enough. So he sends to be the most powerful person on the planet. He slaps his name on this building and that institution. He wants a signature on the money, but it's never enough. The void will
Right.
never ever be filled. He is still a deeply wounded, insecure, weak man baby. That's what he is.
Absolutely.
And
And
so
and
he's,
and he needs to be like he functions like a classic narcissist. And it is, it's not, if somebody goes against him or if he doesn't get his way, we all get disappointed. We all got a little bit of narcissism in us. But when you take this to the level that Donald Trump is at, he has a need to protect himself. And so, like a lot of his decisions that I can see from where I stand are driven by that, psychological need that he has. And it's really terrifying for us because that seems to trump, no pun intended, all other reasons for what he does. So when he takes us to war and he changes tariffs on a day-to-day basis, and he snubs at the federal courts and judges and decisions against him and just goes ahead and does what he wants and dismantles federal agencies. We should be frightened. We should be frightened.
oh, we really should. And like we said, the void is just never enough. I would be more frightened if he were 50 years old. But he's 80 years old. He's oatmeal brained. His dementia is showing every time he
Yes.
speaks, and you could see the people around him every time they kind of clam up because supposedly he stinks when you're near him.
Yes.
He's just a feeble, oatmeal brained, old man. I would be much more frightened if he were younger. But I think nature will probably take its course at some point. Not to say that I want that to happen, so save the fucking comments. But that's going to be, it'll save the comments. But that's to me, that's sort of, where I am on that. I was much more afraid last year. I was much more afraid, this guy's going to be in power until he forever because he's going to arrange, the federal government in such a way that nobody will ever hold him accountable and that he'll be, there until whenever. But I'm much more optimistic now because of groups like yours, Staten Island Action Coalition, that has, pushed back in the most unlikely of places. I mean, Donald Trump has increased his margin of support every time he's run here in Staten Island. And so I think that I will ever people always invite me to go to Manhattan, but I always when we have these protests, but I always feel like it's more important to show up here. I think it's much more important to have a presence in Staten Island because part of the reason Nancy and I started this podcast is because we wanted people to know that we're not all like that. I mean, there was a Kid Rock lookalike contest at a local place not long ago, and I mean, who gives a shit enough to about Kid Rock to have a lookalike contest? I mean, and it was so MAGA coded, and I'm sure that's what it was. But I mean, and I said on the comments of that post, I was like, we're not all like this. Follow us.
Yes, yes. Oh, I'm right there with you. I mean, we had to have opportunities to march with the bigger New York City Indivisibles. And there's a lot of organizing going on in New York City too. I mean, they are really, when it comes to ICE, they are organizing by neighborhood to get neighborhoods to self-organize and protect each other, which I think is amazing. But Staten Island is uniquely different from the rest of the city. We do have a huge population of Trump supporters, and we're private houses, we're young families with children, and there's a mindset here that's uniquely different from the rest of the city. So we're always reminding the New York City Indivisible chapters that you know we need to do things a little bit differently. And you need to come over here and spend time here and help us to do that.
Yes,
Don't
absolutely.
just put us out to pasture like, oh, those Staten Island people. But when it came to No Kings, we said, no, we need to have a march here. We need to take care of our own and send the message that we are open to everyone, that we have like more in common um, than we really think. And we're all about the same things. We all have the same American values, and we're all tending to the same needs. So let's put our heads together and figure out without party lines whether or not this system is working for us and what we want to do about it. Like, let's use our voices, let's use our power and our moxie to get things done and to start making demands, including to the local politicians that hey, you need to start reflecting what's really concerning us and speak to the bullshit that's going on in this country and have a stand on it. It's not about, oh, I only do this part of the government, so I really can't speak to that part. Yes, you can, because the
Mhm.
federal government, in the form of ICE agents, is roaming our streets. And they're picking up and profiling people based on their last names and by the color of their skin. And so it is affecting us. And you, as a local person, should really be having a say about that. Like take a stand and figure out a way to make us feel safe. And I think that all Staten Island is beginning to see things are getting a little bit crazy. Don't you
Oh
think?
yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I think so. I think there was somebody actually on MS Now. They were doing man on the street interviews at the Manhattan No Kings, and there was somebody from Staten Island. I wish they had come to ours, but it was a MAGA voter who was like, I've just seen enough. And I've spoken to people in my own personal life. There was somebody who I spoke to who was a three-time Trump voter and now is going to sign up to do ice watches because it was just not something that the way that it's been carried out is not something that they ever imagined would happen. And so that's what I'm seeing here. And I, when part of me, I have to wrestle with it because when I hear things like that, well, were you fucking blind and deaf the entire campaign? He told you what he was going to do. He wasn't subtle about it. They had the mass deportation signs up at the RNC, and every chance he spoke about immigration in these kind of terms. But I also realize that we have to kind of, as James Tallarico in Texas says, we have to meet people with an open hand, not a closed fist. And so, when people wake up, we have to welcome them back, despite our instincts to say, well, what are you, stupid? Like,
Absolutely. Well,
yeah.
one of the big messages that we have now, I mean, what we did, which I was very proud of, we gave out leaflets at the end. And so it not only highlighted who we were as different organizations and what we would like from you, like get up, join us, let's get going, but a list of next steps that can happen. And so we had a very long laundry list. Do you mind if
Yeah,
I name a
what
few?
are they? I would love that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we as an Indivisible have never had a community meeting, and that has been one of our long-term goals. And so we're having our first community meeting on April 30th. And so we wanted to let people know, like find your people, find your tribe. Let's grow this contagious excitement that we have about, you know, taking a stand and taking action to take your country back. So we're organizing our first ever. We have no idea what the turnout will be. We're hoping for hundreds to come. And this is a forum where we will do this on a regular basis, where we will bring together people so that they have a place where they can talk, meet other people, find out what's doing, get educated by some like, you know, really smart people here on Staten Island who can give us the information that we need to take action. But also just to have a place to say, I'm worried, I'm scared. This is my priority. This is how I envision taking action because there's opportunity to do so much. You know, we want people to join us on Visibility Brigade on the overpasses on Staten Island, where we get honks and it's the most exhilarating
Oh,
experience.
it was
You've
fun. I
been
loved it.
there.
I love the visibility brigades. Those are so much fun. And if you're doing one within the next week, I'll be there because we're off from work. Because normally when you guys are doing it now, I'm on my way home, and my exit is before the one you normally go to, so I can't even beep at you. So,
Well,
uh,
what we do is we don't we use them as pop-ups and we ask
right.
people who are interested in coming to let us know and email us and then we will make sure that we get the information to you. It's tomorrow. I'll let you know what it is.
Yeah.
And so we have that going on. We have Maliotakis Mondays, and we did another one that, just 2 days after No Kings. But we also are planning voter registration. Like our focus is really going to go toward these term elections at this point. So voter registration at the ferry, at all different social events that are happening. We have the Pride Fest coming up, and there are all kinds of social events when the weather gets warm. We'll be out there. And we'll be at rush hour on the ferry as well, getting people registered. But we're also wanting to do canvas trainings. So canvassing is when you go door to door and you talk to people. It's not about, oh, please elect this person. It's about getting people to think about, what they're most invested in. So there's this. We've been trained, a few of us have been trained in a program called Change the Conversation, and we want to bring it here to Staten Island. Whoever wants to join it is welcome to do it. We will advertise it. But this is training in the ability to go door to door and engage in conversation about what people are most worried about, using our own personal experiences. Like we're just people.
Yeah.
We're not Democrats. We're just people. And finding like-mindedness in each other and asking people to really consider through like good reasoning what do they think about what will happen if they don't take action? And just getting people to conclude more clearly what they stand for, and maybe getting some supporters to think about what worries them the most in
Yeah.
in supporting Trump.
Well, I always say that, whenever people express skepticism of that on Staten Island, I always say that, in the last week or so, there's a Democrat representing Trump in Florida, in the state legislature now. And that happened last week. And Democrats have really overperformed in most elections since 2024 because now in the last almost 2 years or so we've seen Trump completely unvarnished, completely uncaged, and now people have an awareness of what that looks like. It's amazing. He's the only politician where he tells you exactly what he's going to do, and people seem not to believe him.
Right,
Like,
right, right. He sends out a memo.
yeah, he's pretty transparent about it, and people seem not to believe him. I don't know what it is, but those are all really uh, good. Those are all really good actions. I also saw recently that SEAC was at the CSI, my alma mater, and they were trying to you folks were trying to sign up more people and I was really happy to see that because we have groups like Turning Point, which is basically, you know. a shell organization for racists and, all other kinds of horrible things. I'm happy to see that there's a counterbalance there of people from SEAC trying to, counterbalance all of that negative influence.
Right.
So how was that? Was that successful? Did you get a lot of students interested? Like, how was that
You
experience?
know, yeah, we're really very focused on engaging with younger people. We want to get them out there. We know that when it came to the mayoral race, that they were out there in droves, and we just thought, let's let's get on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was very favorable. And we are concerned about the fact that, that there's a lot of organizing going on campuses with the other. So yeah, we're trying to equalize the balance there. It was successful, and we hope to do more of it. I think that the college itself is looking to get people engaged in, and just in any form. That there's a worry about apathy. And I keep using the term, and I think that I really feel it to heart, like no one is coming to save us. No
No,
one is
absolutely.
going to do the work for us. And it really is the people that are going to bring our country back, regardless of your orientation. We're Americans, and we
Yeah.
have basic values that are being picked apart at this point. And we want to take it back. And look, it's our young people that need to take up the fight. I'm
Oh,
getting old.
oh, absolutely. Well, it was interesting. Over the last decade or so that we've been living in this nightmare of Trump and Trumpism, I've sort of fallen prey to somebody will come to save us. At first, I thought it would be Robert Mueller, and then I thought it would be the impeachments, and then I thought it would be this or that. And most recently in Staten Island, I was really hoping that the Supreme Court would let us redistrict because I didn't see another way to unseat Nicole Maliotakis except through redistricting. And, it was funny. Nancy and I were talking about it after the decision came down that the lines would remain what they are now. And I said, well, I feel like a 6-year-old. I'm like, well, Texas gets to gerrymander, California gets to gerrymander. Why can't we gerrymander? And so
Yeah.
that's kind of where I was. But since, actually the day that the Supreme Court came out with their decision, Mike DeSillis entered the campaign. He was on this podcast last week. And Allison Ziogas also got involved. And that is the two-person primary now. And our friend Troy McGee was running for a long time, but he's since dropped out of the race. We're sad to see that. But um, I have more hope now because each one of those candidates brings unique strengths to this race that I think, and a lot of people in the district in Staten Island and Brooklyn see themselves a lot in both of these candidates. They're both career civil servant. One of them was a career civil servant, a teacher, a police officer, EMT. That's Mike, of course. And then, Allison has a big union support and following, and we're hoping to get her on the podcast. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on the state of the race here in Staten Island.
You know, I I hope I'm not Pollyanna, but I really feel like in many ways, locally as well as nationally, that the tide is turning, and I feel hopeful about it. Um, Here, I really feel this is a prime opportunity to unseat her. Nicole is a thorn in everyone's side that I can see. Republicans are fed up with her. They feel horribly underrepresented. And she has rubber stamped every single thing. She has really done no work at all for this district. She has just parroted and rubber stamped everything that Trump has said and done. I always use this term, but it seems to me I picture her hiding under her desk most of the time when the really outrageous things are happening. She doesn't have any statement.
Well, that's
That
actually a pretty generous point of view. Usually she's the one cheering it. She's usually the one propagandizing it. She's usually the one trying to gaslight and explain it away.
That's
And
when she
yeah,
comes out from her desk so that she
yeah,
can go on Fox and
yeah.
say what she has to say, but then she runs away and has nothing to say about ICE, nothing to say about all of the chaos and the corruption that is going
Well,
on. She stays
yeah.
silent.
Well, she had to run to the physician's office when she was asked if Ghislaine Maxwell should receive clemency. And I never thought, my representative in Congress has less moral clarity on this especially than the biggest ghouls to in Congress. I mean, if you think about Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Anna Paulina Luna, Nancy Mace, some of the biggest ghouls in Congress, like they have more clarity on this morally than she does. She can't
Well,
even
yeah,
she can't even say that somebody who is probably the world's most well-known living sex trafficker at this point, Ghislaine Maxwell, is cannot and should not receive a pardon. I think, is really telling.
yeah. Well, you know what? Part of No Kings included a letter to Nicole Malliotakis. We wanted to link her and show who she really is. So she was very much a part of our program. We wrote a letter to her and we delivered just on Monday 500 letters with a list of allegations against her and Trump and demands that we have. And they included owning all of what we see. Come out and give statements. Speak to your people, or we are going to vote you out. And when I think about, I haven't seen Allison, I have not heard her speak, and we look forward to it. We're hoping that she will come and meet with us so that we can Q&A with her. We have with Mike. And what I'm gathering is that um, I'm really thinking these two people that are running might have enough intelligence between the two of them to outweigh all the money that she has in the bank. Um, because that's all she has at this point is money. I think we have two candidates who really have the capacity to name the bullshit, to
Hmm.
call her out on her lies, to speak to the issues that she says nothing about and create accountability for her. So I feel we are in a pretty good position to put up a good fight at this point.
Oh, I do too. And I actually went to the openings of each candidate. I went to Mike's a few weeks ago. I went to Allison's last week. And each one of those candidates made a really compelling case. Mike actually, his opening salvo was basically an economic message, but it was also tied to protecting democracy and protecting the country, and how each of them is inextricably tied together. And Allison had a more labor-focused message, had a more economic message, um, definitely more against the establishment of both major parties in the United States. And uh, I've heard people say, well, she and any candidate that runs here basically should avoid the big national issues because they're too divisive. And I disagree with that. I think that, either you're running or you're not. And, this is part of running. How could you not talk about, when it comes to economic issues, Trump's tariffs have made things a whole lot more expensive and for stupid and whimsical reasons. Like, why am I going to pay more just because Trump's pissed off that Brazil put Jair Bolsonaro in prison? Why am I going to pay a lot more um, for these arbitrary reasons? Because, the Mad King is angry for whatever reason. And why am I going to pay more? Why should I pay more in gas so that, you can wage a war of choice in Iran because Bibi Netanyahu dog walked you into that because you're such an idiot that you can't see that this is he's using you to do that. Every American president has rejected that offer to invade Iran with Israel for a
Right.
reason. And I
Even even like last night, one thing that really struck me was talking about the war, asking for what is it, 200 billion more from Congress for funding this war, which still doesn't have an exit strategy or any clarity, despite the fact that he went on television. But he also made it clear, like, don't expect us to take care of daycares and little things like Medicare and Medicaid and healthcare because we have a war to run and we have so much on our plate. That's where you bring the common everyday person and the issues that they face and link it directly to Trump. He is, with his flighty ideas and his impulsivity to protect himself, he's become a warmonger and he's talking about who he's going to attack next. Now, who else do we want to tick off? Whose oil can we take now? This directly affects her every day. Daycare, he wants to take federal funding away from Head Start and then throw it onto the states and put us into a state of chaos. He thinks as a simpleton, but because he's in charge and he makes universal decisions that are just based on what his mood is at the point, he hurts us every single day. And I think that these candidates of ours need to speak to those. I
They,
was
they
really
do.
impressed with Mike
Mm.
that Mike, I'll tell you this, compared to Maliotakis, who I don't think she ever had an original idea in her life, these two appear to see what the issues are and they have solutions. And that's what is beginning to impress me. In hearing Mike speak, I'm hearing that he understands the structure of what works and what doesn't work in our system, even predating Donald Trump, and looking to say we can't just slap a band-aid and make promises. We need to go in and fix what was broken, including the very idea that we run our government based on goodwill
Yeah.
instead of like real
Well, just,
safeguards.
yeah. Well, yeah, we don't have anything that's written to protect a lot of the things that we thought were just kind of ingrained and were kind of just things that we took for granted. And so we do need to reform our government in a lot of ways. And I also think, maybe a test that says, if you're an 80-year-old pedophilic, reality television show host, you shouldn't be qualified to be president. And I think, or at the very least, or if you've been convicted of a felony, you shouldn't be allowed to run like they did with Marie Le Pen in France.
Right.
And
Maybe
so,
psychiatric evaluations that go
yes,
from more than being able to identify animals on a page.
yes. Yeah. Well, he seems to think that's a flex. And I was like, and I'm wondering, I'm like, why are you taking these things so much? Like, what's happening that you have to
Right.
constantly be doing this all the time?
Right. Right.
Yeah, and so that's my thing. And to me, the biggest, and we had a big case before the Supreme Court yesterday. Donald Trump, on his first day back in office, he issued a shit ton of executive orders on this and that, most of which were challenged in the courts and have been resolved one way or the other, or in the process of going through the legal steps necessary to make a final decision. But this was about the issue of birthright citizenship. So he has challenged the notion, and he has long uh, been against what he calls like the anchor babies, people who are born here, perhaps to undocumented people, and are considered to be U.S. citizens because they were born here. And so he challenged that at the Supreme Court. And, he actually physically went to the Supreme Court and sat in the gallery and, heard the arguments, the first president ever to do that. And to me, that was kind of a show of browbeating. Well, I'm here. What are you going to do? And just kind of blatantly trying to intimidate justices. And luckily it didn't seem on either from the conservative justices or the more liberal ones. I didn't see anything different about the way that they questioned the attorneys just because he was there. And in fact, early on, his Solicitor General received pretty tough questions from John Roberts, from Neil Gorsuch, from Amy Coney Barrett about their skepticism that this, EO basically nullifying birthright citizenship had any merit. And it seems like he believes he's probably going to lose this case too. He posted a Truth Social this morning at 4:30 this morning, calling the Supreme Court a kangaroo court.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, there's the psychological profile, right? He needs to diminish anything that doesn't go his way. He needs to destroy it. I'm with you. I think that his showing up at court was a complete intimidation tactic. It was his message that, I'm here and I'm watching you and you better do what I want. It's part of the bigger grandiosity that he carries around with him, that I'm the king and what I say goes, and you work for me. And it didn't work. And it frightens me to think of what he needs to do now if he loses this case. And he probably will lose
Yeah.
this case. I mean, it sounds to me like they were, quite frankly, I don't know why they bothered to give it an audience, because the 14th Amendment is not anything that you're going to, they could have done it in a different way. But so I do worry a little bit that there are some justices that still kowtow to him and,
Well, I
get
think
what he
you
wants.
actually, well, actually the ones that I'm fearful of that are most kowtowing are Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas when he's not being bought off by Harlan Crow and going on vacations and getting all of his stuff paid for and all that stuff. Those are the ones who are most susceptible. Actually, Trump's appointees, particularly Gorsuch and Barrett, sounded most skeptical of this executive order, and they were most skeptical, it seemed like, of the tariffs. I listened to the arguments in both cases, and and this is a court, I'm not giving them credit at all in any way. This is a court that 98% of the time they do what he wants. I mean, temporary protections from certain migrant groups have been stripped away. They, a few days ago, said that conversion therapy for minors to try and make them not be gay is constitutional and it's a form of free speech, and we shouldn't touch it. So I'm not giving those people any credit. I think they suck in different ways, but I think it's clear even in this case, and they're going to fuck elections with mail-in ballots and stuff too. But I think that here, they can even call a spade here.
Yeah, this is, look, this has been a long-term thing that he has spoken about. He went in, created this. Look how long it took to finally get up to the Supreme Court and to finally put this to rest. That's what has made, us have the experience of chaos, is that the court system, at least a lot of the time, does work out the way that we want it to, but it takes a year for us to
Yeah.
catch up, and then the damage is all done. But this, first of all, the argument is really weak, and historically, his argument is not accurate. He dates it going back to, like right after the Civil War, but the reality is that the foundations of this amendment existed long before that. And but he has a way, of when he speaks with such authority, even when it's crazy bullshit,
Hmm.
and people believe him. People who don't know any better think, well, he's said that with, with a lot of strength, so it must be true. And that's how he manages to organize all of this. But yeah, I think that if this were ever to come to be, and I still do quiver in my boots until we get an actual decision, it would be a chain reaction of what we define citizenship as. I think it would just be the beginning. And that seems to be what he's looking for, the foot in the door on so many issues,
Well, this one,
including the mail-in voting.
yeah, well, this one actually, in Nazi Germany, Jews were stripped of their citizenship, and that's how they were able to be subject to all the horrendous and heinous crimes that they eventually were. And so that's what I think is happening. But, it was interesting hearing some of the justices' questions yesterday. Ketanji Brown Jackson, Biden's appointee, first Black woman to sit on the Supreme Court, she asked the question, well, how are we going to know? How are we going to determine? Are we going to have people in the delivery room asking questions? What is that going to look like? And Amy Coney Barrett also asked a similar question. She was like, well, how is this all going to play out in practicality? And so we're gonna, wait on a decision like that, but the hubris that he had to actually show up and sit there as if it was actually going to matter. He cannot fire these people, just because he appointed them. Um, just because he appointed them, and again, I'm not defending Brett Kavanaugh or Amy Coney Barrett or Neil Gorsuch here, but these people owe you nothing. Their constitutional role is clear. And this is not The Apprentice. This is,
Right.
this is not The Apprentice.
Right.
You don't get to sit there and say you're fired because they'd make a decision you don't like.
Right.
That's not how this works.
Right.
And that's the whole point. And again, just the fact that he's kicking and screaming over a couple of decisions when 98% of them have gone his way over the
Truth.
past 2 years is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is. Some of the decisions that they actually and some of the stays really blew me away. It was shocking to see that they could actually make such decisions. It's clear that SCOTUS has become very politicized, and that's frightening. And one of the things that I want to hear from our congressional candidates is, what are you going to do about that? Because we can't depend upon the goodwill of our Supreme Court anymore either. And um, that is the ultimate tragedy, I think, is that everything has been corrupted. And we now need no guardrails for how to manage and organize the Supreme Court. They need to maybe have consequences related to their behavior and built-in accountability that we never had before because we relied on the goodwill of the justices, which, we've already seen we can no longer rely upon.
Well,
Yeah.
no, because, a good percentage of them are bought. I mean, certainly Clarence Thomas is, Samuel
Yes.
Alito is, and some of the others are. His grandchildren, whoever in his family, a young child in Clarence Thomas' family, got his whole school tuition paid for by this billionaire, Harlan Crow. And so,
Yes.
total whopping conflict of interest. My only hope is that they hold out long enough, so that a Democratic president is elected in a few years and replaces them. And with people who will actually, uphold the dignity of the court, and potentially that we get a Congress who will implement those reforms. It's not enough just to go uh, and say that we have to do this or that and then not follow through. We have to actually do this. And the court a few years ago in 2024 made this window dressing ethics code that is unenforceable. Nobody, it's just that we have to again rely on their supposed goodwill in order to enforce it. And so,
Enforcement is a very interesting thing, Andrew, because it seems to me that enforcement of even judicial decisions have no way of taking place. You can issue a statement that this is what's mandated, but if Trump doesn't follow through, what's been the consequence of it?
oh
And
yeah, well, he's
again,
basically
like that's what Congress needs to get back in ink power and begin to take a look at all the brokenness that we have within our system and shore it up with some legislation, right?
Yeah, oh, we do. We absolutely do. And, I think we need to overturn Citizens United. I think we need to get rid of the influence of money in our politics because that has corrupted things, when we have interests like APAC, when we have interests like other big money organizations influencing our candidates, influencing other parts of our government, we can never be sure that decisions or policies that are being implemented are within our best interests and not just service to donors. And
Right.
so we have to get those things implemented. But
So change is really, even on the local level, like one of the things that we're asking people to do in next steps on Staten Island is to push our local electeds to do more. Like not just don't just stay in your lane. Be
mhm.
willing to speak out. Take a risk. Speak to your own ethics and values about what you think is right and wrong and put yourself on the map and push back a little bit. Don't be so afraid to toe the line. And I think that part of what we need to do as the people of Staten Island is to demand that. And I want to hear that these congressional candidates have the moxie to go out and do that as well. I want to hear about their strength, that they want to go in and not just toe the line and make some promises or make a couple of little changes, but really kind of like rip the lid off and say, we need some major reforms in our country. And unfortunately, Donald Trump showed us that we do. because
Yeah.
came in and broke every rule, right?
Oh, yeah. And it's a symptom of things, we thought we had, especially after Watergate, I think we had thought that we, shored things up and made things more honest, but clearly, we have more work to do. And I want to know from congressional candidates, and I felt weird kind of asking Mike this when he was on the podcast, but I really feel like the Democratic leaders in Congress, particularly Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, they are so ineffective. They are so, Hakeem Jeffries is a walking, talking robot. And Chuck Schumer is just, a leader in the Senate from 1998. He is not somebody who is meeting the moment right now. And they seem to, although, I'm not going to hold my breath because, leave it to Democrats to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. But usually, like this DHS shutdown, I actually think they've played very well
Yes.
because, you know, like when Nicole Maliotakis goes out there and lies and says that it's Democrats who are holding things up when, there were 8 TSA bills that Republicans all voted against. Um, they've held the line and said, no, you need to figure this out. You have the majority in both the House, the Senate, and you have the presidency, so you figure it out. And come
They've
to,
held out,
yeah,
but they haven't done it loudly enough.
yes,
And that's really part of what needs to happen. Like you should be, well, how many Democrats do we have in the Senate? They should be on
47.
every street corner of America screaming about the deception and all of the manipulation of facts every single day. They have an opportunity to go out on a campaign and call out and, make everybody know what every single lie is. And I don't know that they do it loudly enough. Yeah, Chuck Schumer, I'm going to give him credit, but it doesn't mean that we're not calling him
Oh,
constantly
absolutely.
to say, you need to keep this up, Chuck. Don't cave, Chuck. And we've been outside of his house recently
I saw that.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like, well, I think, the weakness that I see in Chuck and Hakeem is basically, when it comes to things that matter, they don't whip the votes. And like I remember when the ICE funding bill came up a few months ago, and Hakeem Jeffries allowed Tom Suozzi and Henry Queller and a few other, milquetoast Democrats to vote with Republicans to fund it. And so, same thing with Chuck Schumer and the shutdown in the fall.
yeah,
He allowed 8 of his senators to, break the shutdown with Republicans. And so, Nancy Pelosi, with whatever people said about her politics or this or that, I mean, she whipped those votes. There was no, going over and voting with them and trying to, be the bigger person or be the bigger adult. You can't operate with these people like that because they don't care
right,
about anything. They're so
right,
nihilistic. They could give a fuck. Why are we the adults? Why do we have to be the adults in the room? Let them figure it out. They have the majority.
right,
You own the libs. You
right,
won, so you figure it out. So I'm always mystified by that when it comes to Democrats, that we always have to try and be, the adults who come in and save the day when, let them fuck it up.
right, right. And not only that, but how about let's start thinking about, fighting fire with fire.
Yes,
Let's use a little bit more fire. I think that the mild manner of the Democrats just doesn't come across as some of the crazy that we see. And it takes a louder voice. So, getting loud doesn't mean getting violent. It just means getting loud. And it feels powerful and it's strengthening when we do use our voice. And I'm inviting everybody to come out and do it because nobody's gonna save us.
they will not. They will not. And we're the ones who are going to do that. And, you know, uh, we're going to, end things on a much funnier, much lighter note. And my God, I mean, the last few days, the memes about Kristi Noem and her husband are just amazing. I mean, and for our listeners who may not know, I mean, just Google it. But there's Kristi Noem's husband, Byron, was discovered to be into a bimbofication fetish, where
Bimbofication.
yes, that's what it's called. I didn't know that was a thing, but evidently it is. And so he's wearing these big pair of fake tits and a skirt and all this other stuff. And he's there online with, webcamming and all this other stuff. And listen, I'm not kink shaming anybody. I'm not, whatever you're into, whatever floats your boat, fine. But it's these same people who are the moral majority, who are the ones who are policing other people and saying conversion therapy is okay, saying going after LGBT people, showing up with guns and stuff like Scott Lobato did when there was a drag queen reading a book to
Right.
children. That these are the same people who do all that shit who are now kinking and with the big tits. I'll fight for your right to be there and do the big tit thing, but I am also not going to let you off the hook when you're going after other people and shaming them and trying to oppress them and to take away people's rights. That's like, so I'm going to call you out on the hypocrisy of that. But the memes have been absolutely hilarious. They've
Yeah,
just
I
been
would say,
absolutely hilarious.
you come up with these kind of things. You couldn't get Bravo TV to create a TV show about this because it's just too outrageous by their standard. Like they really write their own comedy and the hypocrisy of it. I mean, you have Christy Nome, first of all, has destroyed so many lives with her cowboy hat, sitting up on her horse talking. She's on every single television in every single airport. I just traveled recently, and everywhere you turned, there was her
Yeah, I
riding
saw that.
horseback
Yeah.
with her big cowboy and her big chiseled yeah, Barbie face. You know, you have this Donald Trump look of the big cheekbones and the puffy lips and everybody who doesn't look like their former selves. It's a comedy, and you don't know whether to cry or to laugh. But I got a good laugh out of this one. I mean,
Oh my
it
God,
really was
this
outrageous.
was this was too funny. My favorite one, I saw the meme of, Christy Noem's husband when he walks out of the house and it's Robin Williams pulling up the thing and Mrs. Doubtfire with the breasts and all that.
I haven't seen all of those. I
Oh,
am gonna
those
go look today.
those are just, oh, chef's kiss. Like, inject that into my veins. It's
Yeah,
so amazing. And
and uh,
not only that, she was having an affair with her staffer for a very long
yes,
time, Corey Lewandowski. And so, these people who are all about family values and traditions and this and that, they can't even live up to their own standards, much less hold other people to them. And so
right.
I think we have to, call that hypocrisy out wherever it comes from. And it's just amazing.
More than happy to. And yesterday, hearing Trump say, "Oh, I didn't hear about that. Oh, really? That's what happened? Oh, what a shame. I feel so sorry for that family. Well, I don't know anything about it. I'm quite sure that it's connected in part to her dismissal and being put out to pasture. So I'm sure he's known about it. But I just thought to myself, wouldn't it be the greatest thing to have a comeback that says something like, "Oh, I don't know anything about that because pedophilia is really where I lie. This is
Yeah.
more my main interest. We can't forget about those Epstein files." And it's just you have a criminal, you have a felon who's in charge, and he surrounded himself with the most corrupted, felonious people. All of them are lawbreakers, and all of them projecting this Christian moral majority. And they're out there acting out in some in criminal ways, and some that in ways that even Bravo TV can't handle. So, I mean, you have to laugh. You
Yeah.
really
Oh, I
have to laugh.
know. Oh, you gotta. Well, now now that's your homework. I'm a teacher. I'm gonna give you homework. Now you have to go and see those memes. They're just,
I'm doing it. I'm
oh,
doing it.
we just do like on Instagram. If you just put hashtag Byron Gnome, my God, what comes up is just
I
gold.
will see it. I
It's
will
just,
see it.
oh, it's just gold. And I have a feeling that's going to be a Halloween costume this year.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. That's a great one. Great, great, great.
I have a feeling that's going to be a Halloween costume this year, and they're both taking the heat off Erica Kirk for a while because like people shit on her all the time, but I'm hoping that I'm
She's
hoping
just
there's
another
more.
clown.
Yeah, I'm hoping there's more of it. I'm hoping there's more of it to come because, like I said, the people who project the stuff about moral majority, this and drag queens and everything else, they're the ones who, have the biggest skeletons in their closet as it relates to their own kinks and everything else. So, on that note, Laura McCarthy, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. So nice to be here. So much to talk about, Andrew.
And this is the Left in the Forgotten Borough podcast, and we'll see you next week.